is going on, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsbeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood up here in Bear Country.
Absolutely. No, awesome show. And we have an awesome menu lined up for the day. First up, Chevron Exxon opt out of funding at COP28, Methane Reduction Fund. Ooh, in the throngs of COP28, Chevron and Exxon make a name. Next up, copper climbs to 11-week high on our Panama mine risk and shortfall. We don't cover the minerals markets as much as maybe we should, but Stu, great article you've got on what's going on with copper right now and why it's really so expensive. Talking about that, speaking about copper being expensive, why repairing your EV is so expensive. May not much have to do with the price of copper, but it has a lot to do with the supply chain. So Stu will dive into all that. Next up, Germany is sick of the man of Europe and the man. Germany is the sick man of Europe, and the prognosis is grim, unfortunately. So Stu will play doctor and talk to us about the health of Germany. And then finally, the dangerous futility of the energy transition in a single graphic. So, excellent show lined up. Stu will toss it over to me. I'll quickly then cover what happened in the oil and gas financial markets. Not much really happened, to be honest with you, so it'll be pretty a light segment on my own. And then we'll let you guys get out of here, get back to work, and start your day. As always, guys, before we begin, the stories and analysis you are about to hear is brought to you by the world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com, the best place for all your energy news. Stu and the team do a great job of curating that website. Make sure it stays up to speed with everything you need to know to stay up to speed and at the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy business. You can hit the description below, see the links to the articles, the timestamps, and check out all of our resources. You can follow us wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you can find us at YouTube, at Energy Newsbeat, dashboard energynewsbeat.com, data news combo product. You can email the show questions at energynewsbeat.com. I'm out of breath though, Stu. Where do you want to begin?
Hey, let's get rolling over to our buddies over there at Chevron and Exxon opt out of funding at COP28 Methane Reduction Fund. Michael, this is an absolute hoot. Ursula, our good buddy over there who's in charge of the EU, made a comment that this fund is going to be into the billions. That the commitments have been about $100 billion over COP as their target. She says that's not enough. We need trillions. I think that might have been the trigger for Exxon and Chevron to go, no, our checkbook is not that big. Let's go through this here. A global flaring and methane reduction partnership that will run by the World Bank with initially $255 million earmarked to help developing countries and their oil companies stifle leaks on that potent greenhouse gas. Okay. I can understand why Exxon and Chevron later down in the article, they say, we're not sure we want to donate to a fund that's going to be controlled by our competitors. I applaud them for that decision. That's pretty crazy. And so when you sit back and think, you have BP, ENI, Equinor, Occidental, Shell, Total, and UAE. All of that was 100 million. US put in 2 million. Germany put in 1.5, and Norway was 1. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Exxon or Chevron, I think from their perspective, they're doing all if you don't think Exxon and Chevron are not trying to on their own reduce emissions because they understand that if they make it, that if they reduce emissions and produce sustainable oil and gas, it's the best of both worlds. They're probably spending more than $25 million to lower their emissions. So the fact that they have to now put it up is probably where they're like, well, we don't need, we don't just need to just lose 25 million when we're already doing it.
I applaud them for that. Absolutely. And where they were in there, and Exxon said they joined the pledge, but we're going to give our expertise in what we're already doing, Michael. I applaud them for standing up. We've got to have more of that kind of thing. And our great Chevron and Exxon are doing better than my buddy Putin, and you sit back and kind of go, hey, Gazprom is leaking like a sieve. I mean, that's like me in a
Yep.
Speedo. I'm leaking everywhere. Okay, that was
on that lovely note. Let's
go to the next.
Let's go to coppers.
I just threw up. Copper climbs to an 11-week high in Panama mine risk shortfall. This is the ENB thread tonight. You'll see this here in just a second ago and where this is fitting in. The Panama government said it will shut First Quantum Minerals Cobre operation, which is 1.5% of the world's supply. Anytime, Michael, you take 1.5% of anything off and in a world supply, it's going to start impacting it. That's a bunch.
Yeah.
Chile and Peru are the others. Copper climbed 4.4 in November as a slew of stimulus in China improved the outlook for commodity demand. This is going to impact EVs, buddy. This is big.
Yeah, no. And I mean, luckily copper is there's other sources of copper available to go out and get. It's not like we're talking about a lithium mine. It's not like we're talking about one of these smaller minerals like neodymium, which I'm sure you've never heard of, but is probably the most critical mineral in your entire life. There are multiple sources to go get copper. It's one of the reasons why, way back when currency was backed on gold and not copper, because the amount of supply of copper was increasing too rapidly. Right. Ironically, it's what a monetary base is doing right now. So yes, I do think that these high copper prices are concerned. I do think, as you mentioned, Chile and Peru and some of these other nations, there's a lot of these other copper mines are going to be able to pick up the output. I do think in 2024 that we're probably going to see a larger shift, and that's going to, again, as you said, as we move into the next article, bleed into the EV market, because there still is a lot of copper. It's not the main one. If we were talking about a lithium mine, or or a critical lithium mine, we'd see EV prices would shoot through. This is going to have a long range of, and not just on EVs. This is, I mean, copper's used in wiring. Copper's is an industrial parts. Again, it's one of the reasons why we wouldn't want to eventually, people always talk about, well, how do we pick something to back our currency up? Well, if you chose copper, the problem is it's too prevalent in industry, not just EVs, everywhere. I mean, I'm sitting in an apartment right now. I bet you there's miles of copper flowing around me. So it's going to have a long tail effect, not necessarily just the EVs, but it will make them more expensive.
You alluded on several of my comments that I was trying to go for, and that is all of the renewable projects. There are 24,000 renewable projects waiting to get attached to the grid in the U.S. Rut-row. And what is being attached to the grid? We're talking power lines. Oops. So, okay, electric vehicles. Why repairing your EV is so expensive, Michael? Remember about 2 months ago, you and I talked about insurance. Insurance companies are even more shark-like than sharks. They actually understand dollars and cents. And so this is where it gets a little bit funny. EV repairs following a collision can cost thousands of dollars more than their gas counterparts because it tends more moving parts. The vehicles are more complicated and fewer people do such repairs. Michael, I loved my 43 Willys. It was a 43 Willys flathead. It was the only year it was the first year they made the Jeep. And I mean, it was the first four-wheel drive car ever made. That thing would go. I pulled out people out of the mud in it. It was an old World War II Jeep. I loved it. I could work on it. Can't work on anything since.
Now, yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously the EV is going to be a little bit harder to fix than the Model T, which was the Stu's first car. But okay. What's crazy is this 51-year-old San Francisco guy, whatever his name is, Scott McFiggin.
Right.
All he had was a bumper issue, a dent the size of a bowling ball underneath a real tail amp. 2.5 months to fix, $22,000. We're in the wrong business, Stu. We got to shut it all down and become EV mechanics.
let's see, podcast host, EV mechanic. There's work involved with one of those. No.
Good point. In their defense, it is a Rivian, which is one of those new style cars. But I love how they say down here, Stu, that the average cost of repairing an EV is about $6,500, which is about $1,500 more than the average car, about $4,200.
Right.
And as you mentioned, it comes with the increased cost of just a lot of stuff. What's interesting is that Hertz is even saying, after entering an agreement to purchase a lot of Teslas and have a decent amount of Teslas in their fleet, they actually mentioned that part of the reason their third quarter profit was smaller than expected was due to the fact that they spent so much on repairing electric models, which it just, again, goes to show you the uneconomics of EVs at its finest.
Now, I will say I want a Cybertruck. And that's after I saw this video on TV. A guy came out and there's two videos that I thought were great. And I want to give Elon Musk a shout out. And that is, they brought out a Tommy gun and shot 45s at the thing. And it actually, it did fine. So I want me a bulletproof Cybertruck. Now, the other one was showed these Tesla robots running around shooting at it. And that actually was green screen and CGI and everything else. And people were thinking that was real, that they had Tesla robots driving a Cybertruck. So there are two different ones, but I do want a Cybertruck.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go.
What's next?
Let's go to Germany. Germany is the sick man of Europe, and the prognosis is grim. Ooh. Yeah. Oh, clear. Hey, watch this. For our podcast listeners, I have 2 of my 30 mics that are normally on my desk. Clear. Coming. We got to have that.
20 cc's.
Stat. Okay. German governments, Germany, they had their BASF fertilizer plant closed. They've had the oldest steel mill in the EU close this year. Volkswagen has absolutely shut down. And why, Michael? High costs of energy. Their energy costs have continued to go through the roof. Former Chancellor Angela Merkel liked to evoke the idea of frugal Swabsben housewife when she lectured others on sensible economics. It was her government that earned a debt break into the Constitution. She was good about some things. She did like a little bit of a sharp pencil on the budget. She did some other things that were questionable, but let's go in here. The necessary cuts will hit Germany amid cost living crisis. This is a new reality, will bring more economic problems, piling on pressure on a fragile and unpopular government. We're now seeing that high energy costs shut businesses down. They have less tax revenue coming in. People leave your countries, and Germany's economy, so goes Germany's economy, goes the EU. Mm-hmm. So this article is pretty scary for the EU.
Yeah, I mean, but they've done it to themselves, unfortunately. I mean, they've put themselves in the straitjacket, and now they're just jumping off the riverbank. And
yeah, guess who put themselves in the straitjacket with them? Newsom. Yeah. Newsom has also done it, and Governor Holcomb is trying to do it to New York. So if you're in one of those two states, get you a Cybertruck because the governor's going to shoot you. Yeah. So never mind. Okay, let's go to the last article here, Michael. Dangerous futility of the energy transition in a single graphic. This goes back to COP28, and that's I get to interview tomorrow. It'll come out Thursday. It'll be 11 o'clock our time. It'll be 9 a.m. in Dubai. Grace Stank with she's Miss America in the nuclear thing. And the reason that the energy transition to net zero, you got to have nuclear and you got to have natural gas until 30 years from now, until wind and solar can actually be made without printing money. Look at this graphic. If Andy, we can have you as our producer slide this in. Look at this map. You have the
Yeah.
green buttons are net decrease, and the red is net increase. Look at that map. You have Europe, the EU, and Russia and the United States, Michael, all reducing emissions. Look at the rest of that map. It is China. China looks like a python that ate an entire golf ball or something. I mean, it's just a
Basketball.
gigantic. Yeah, it's like wow. And then you take a look at India's blowed up. I mean, you take a look at that. It's wow, painful. So when you take a look, the false and heavily subscribed energy transition has nothing to do with the climate or the environment. It's the fact the most advanced transfer of wealth and national security in human history. That is from the author of this. Stephen C. David Blackman.
Oh, well, we love him. I mean, if they said a picture's worth 1,000 words, then this picture really is worth.
It is.
It's worth more because it clearly shows us where the emissions are coming from. I mean, anybody who's sitting in the United States saying we are not doing enough to curb emissions, you're just not necessarily informed. Now, the problem is our net decrease in emissions is offset by huge net increases over in. But what do you expect India and China and Indonesia and Vietnam and the Philippines? What do you expect them to do when they are attempting to lower the cost of energy for their citizens? What do you expect?
I don't expect them to do anything different except use more natural gas and more nuclear. You can handle this very easily if you don't have the World Economic or the World Bank charging exorbitant rates to put in renewable that has a higher cost. So there is a way around this. Let's help Africa use their own natural gas. Charge a higher natural gas and help them export that and charge that and let that money go back to Africa. There is a way in order to get to net zero if we work together. But David Blackman, follow him on blackman.substack.com. He is a cool cat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We love that.
Our favorite random guy on Substack.
Favorite random guy on Substack. Is that all you got?
That's all I got, man.
Wow, I'll keep it short on my side, guys. We saw overall in the finance markets today, we saw stock market drop about half a percentage point. NASDAQ or S&P down about, as I mentioned, half a percentage point, 45.69. NASDAQ down about a full percentage point, 15.839, which represents, again, about a 157-point drop. Crude oil dropped about 2.5 percentage points from opening somewhere around 74.75, currently trading 73.26 as we record this, about 5:57 here on the 4th. We did see natural gas stay fairly steady at about $2.70. Brent oil, 79.18. We did see Bitcoin spike over 42,000, currently trading about 41.97 right now. So for all you Bitcoins enthusiasts out there right now, hey, prices through the roof. Gold also hit 21,000 a day. So I mean, if you're in metals, hey, it's a good day for you. As far as what's holding, again, oil prices down, it's really the fact that OPEC Plus will probably not make more cuts. I mean, that seems to be the sentiment out there right now, but it also, as it's come out multiple times, OPEC Plus has had to tamp down rumors that none of its countries are actually abiding by the supply cuts. The Saudi prince came out today, or the Saudi energy minister came out today and said, well, we think they're abiding by the cuts. You think? You really do? You think?
I don't think so.
We've covered extensively on this show. They're not. We've talked about the dark fleet and all that stuff, but that's really, I think the market is starting to, and again, $120 oil, chirping. I'm not seeing it anywhere, Stu. I'm looking hard, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. So we're still working on putting that segment together. Point of it is, I think, really as low, I don't know. I would have told you 75 is the floor, Stu. So this is a little bit shocking in terms of me, but how low we've gone. Again, can't complain. $73 oil. I won't complain about that. But it's interesting considering, again, the fact that most people were hoping for 100, 120, $150 oil. So, we know you had it pegged at that. So it'll be interesting to see how things turn. But this is not bullish coming into the end of the year, Stu.
No, now Brazil just got accepted into OPEC Plus, and the head of Petrobras basically came out and said, "We're a member of OPEC Plus, but you're not going to put a quota on us, and we will produce as much as we possibly can." Oops. So welcome to the new member, and that just validates everything else that there is no quota.
Yeah, no, the only quota. The only quota is on coal plants in China, and that's up. We know that.
No, the only quota is that we are going to cut all of ours. Our buddy Kerry has also, by the way, if anybody wants to know, I did put that on Twitter. Our staff over there at COP28 found a picture of Kerry. He got photobombed in a pool. So anyway, that being said, Kerry has agreed to cut all of our coal plants out. So that means blackouts.
Burn your shoes. But we will have plenty of ketchup.
That's exactly right. Burn your ketchup.
Burn your ketchup. All right, what else, Stu? What's your big takeaway from COP28 first day?
It's disgusting. I applaud the oil companies for standing up. I applaud them that Ursula from the EU. I've reached out to her, invited her on the podcast, but I don't know that she'll be here. She said, billions are not enough. We need trillions. I'm like, you got to be kidding
open.
me.
I'll help you. Trillion? You're right. It's probably 3 trillion. Give me $1 trillion. I'll help you out.
Yeah. Hey, what's a few trillion between friends? You and I started the podcast years ago going, what's a few billion between friends?
It was $1 million between friends. Now it went to billions, and now it's at trillions.
Unbelievable. So what should people wonder about COP? I'm interviewing Grace Stanky, Miss America, 11 o'clock, and it's 9 o'clock her time. So anyway, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
No, it'll be great. But appreciate, Stu, all your hard work. We'll be covering COP28 and everything around the oil and gas and energy markets here. But we're going to let you guys get out of here, finish up or start your day, depending on when you're listening to this. For Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. As always, guys, we appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.